That is very different from Netanyahu's reading of the plan, which is that it doesn't require that full Israeli withdrawal for quite a long time, and that, for him, there will never be a Palestinian state.
I'm joined now by Jane Kinninmont, Chief Executive of the United Nations Association. She's also a former research fellow in the Middle East and North Africa programme of Chatham House. Welcome to the programme. Let me just ask you straight off, how do you rate the chances of a Hamas surrender?
There has been a lot of work done by Arab and Islamic countries to try to prepare the ground for a transition away from Hamas, including disarmament. Back in July, there was a UN conference on the question of Palestine, in which all the countries of the Arab League, as well as the European Union and others, including the UK, endorsed a plan to disarm Hamas, but that was on the basis that it would hand its arms over to the Palestinian Authority, and there would be a path to Palestinian statehood. Now, with the Trump plan, it's quite unclear, as you say, whether that has got enough of an incentive structure. And although we have seen Arab leaders come out in some numbers today to welcome the plan, if you look at what they have said carefully, with a diplomat's eye to what is said and not said, they express their support for his leadership and his efforts for peace, but they also say they're ready to work with him on a full withdrawal of Israeli forces and a path to a two-state solution. That is very different from Netanyahu's reading of the plan, which is that it doesn't require that full Israeli withdrawal for quite a long time, and that, for him, there will never be a Palestinian state. So there's still a very big divide to be bridged.
Indeed there is, and you've highlighted it there very clearly. Do you think there's a chance that Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to the Trump plan because he knows that Hamas will not surrender?
His calculations are complicated because for his ruling coalition, this plan is still not enough for them. His coalition may break up. He may need to go to elections. But at the same time, he doesn't have much alternative than to work with Trump because Israel has become isolated from many of its traditional allies over the last couple of years. But the alliance with the US is the most key international partnership that it has. So certainly he can't be seen to reject the plan, but he, like others, will be trying to shape it in a way that advances his interests. He does also know that there's growing opposition in Israel to the continuing war in Gaza, and that the country's security establishment, including the army, is not really happy with where things stand. So he may feel this is a way to actually bring about an end to this and not be held kind of politically captive to some of his coalition partners.
I mean, I'm at a risk here of being too negative, because you always want a peace plan to work if it stops the killing. But maybe this plan is something on which Netanyahu and Hamas agree. Neither really want this roadmap.
Well, we've certainly seen, a desire from Trump to make peace elsewhere too, that has fallen by the wayside, with Russia and Ukraine, where the US has sought to impose something, but hasn't managed to do it. That said, there is a very strong international consensus and international goodwill to end this war in Gaza and move towards something else. And the situation for Palestinians clearly can't continue indefinitely. Hamas did accept the previous American iteration of a ceasefire deal just a few weeks ago. It did also accept a ceasefire and hostage deal back in January, which then fell apart essentially because of dynamics within the ruling coalition in Israel. So it's not that they won't agree to a deal, but it is a matter of what are those terms, and have those details been worked out, or will there be an ability to work them out beyond the grand announcement that we've seen?
President Trump has lined up an impressive array of Muslim countries, including the major Arab powers in the region, behind this plan. As you pointed out, sometimes the wording's not exactly the same. You did mention when we started our talk about the work of the Arab League in disarming Hamas earlier this year, on different assumptions, of course. But can this array of Muslim countries, of Arab powers, can that revisit Hamas and bring fresh pressure on Hamas to disarm and hand over its weapons?
Well, I mean, this is really what we are watching out for, in the coming days.
In real time.
In real time, so maybe it's not the best time to make those predictions because we could be overtaken by events. But we do see that the Arab mediators have been trying very hard. They also, however, feel that the goalposts keep being moved. It was interesting to see yesterday that Donald Trump managed to have a phone call with the Emir of Qatar and with Netanyahu, in which Netanyahu, no doubt through gritted teeth, apologised to Qatar for killing one of its policemen when it bombed Hamas leaders in Doha. So clearly we can see that, the Gulf countries are important to Donald Trump. He doesn't want to see them totally embarrassed. There aren't really Palestinians being consulted directly by the Americans in working out this plan. So the sort of concessions that they have made to Palestinian concerns seem largely to be thanks to the advocacy of Gulf countries. But it is a problem when you look at peacemaking. I mean, you often need an international mediator and international pressure to get something over the line. But if you do not involve and consult the people on the ground, and I'm not just talking about Hamas who have been in these hostage ceasefire negotiations, but Palestinians more broadly, the Palestinian president, the Palestinian Authority, the leaders in Palestinian society who have been, keeping hospitals going and driving ambulances and so forth. If all of them are excluded from a process, you're not actually going to get that buy-in that keeps a peace process going and makes it stick and makes it work. And that's what we've learned from so many conflicts in so many parts of the world over the years.
But to get these people's buy-in and to get them involved in the peace process, as you say, non-Hamas Palestinian leaders, you probably do first have to get the guns off Hamas. Do we know who bankrolls Hamas now? Where's the money coming from? Because that may be one way of putting pressure on them to follow this plan.
Well, I mean, Hamas has had an array of supporters from around the Arab world.
Sure.
From the
but who's doing it now?
But right now, their reach on the ground has really been decimated. I mean, the whole social fabric in Gaza is being destroyed by the kind of conditions that people are living in. So, they're no longer what they were in terms of a force that is providing some semblance of government. We can't tell now what level of popular support they have under these conditions. What they do have is control over the Israeli hostages, and they have their spokespeople internationally who are able to participate in the negotiations. But the issue of peace is going to go, or the issue of security for both peoples goes far, far beyond Hamas. This conflict didn't start with Hamas. And at the end of the day, if there is to be security for Israelis and Palestinians, there needs to be a critical mass of people who believe that they can coexist without killing each other. That they can believe that they can share this land in some way, sure, maybe with international guarantees and international peacekeepers, but that it's not a totally zero-sum game. So it goes way beyond the financing available to Hamas.
Yes.
How do you build confidence that there is actually a way forward so you don't just get some other group that says violence is the only answer after what we've been through?
Well, there does seem to be a consensus among those involved in the plan, including the Arab states as well, that Hamas should be allowed no role in Gaza's future from now on. It just shouldn't be involved in it. And that is, of course, the position of the British government here in London too. But is that realistic? I mean, have we the power, the ability to do that? Just to say whatever happens, however you feel in Palestine, among Palestinians, Hamas is out of it, period.
I'm not sure that we do, but then again, if we look at things that have happened elsewhere, I mean, sometimes, as in Northern Ireland, which obviously was a terrible conflict, but one that involved much fewer deaths over the years, you had a kind of mutation. You know, you can have sometimes a party that does give up arms and goes down a political route, or a party that goes by another name, or individuals who leave a movement and join another one. And what really matters is whether that movement is able to transform and able to commit to a new way of doing politics. So what the Palestinian president said in the context of France recognizing the state of Palestine was that he said, you know, the Hamas could become part of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the umbrella group for Palestinian movements. But to do that, it would need to respect the previous peace agreements that have been made.
Understood. Can I just ask you finally, just to sum things up, it's, you know, the plan involves a board of peace chaired by Mr. Trump involving Tony Blair, an Arab peacekeeping force, we've not seen many of these in the past, a radical transformation of the Palestinian Authority, that hasn't happened, a two-state solution or something else, differently worded and so on, a different entity. I mean, I would just say a lot has to go right for this plan to work. So how, just very briefly, how do you rate its chances? Is this a new beginning, or is it just not going to pan out?
We've seen so many plans that have failed, and there's a high risk that this will be one too. The interest in having an Arab stabilisation force has been talked about for nearly 2 years now. The Tony Blair Institute has been heavily involved in that discussion. But at the end of the day, countries will only commit troops if they think that those troops are not going to be seen as a new occupying force. You know, so that is an area where Arab states might have some leverage. Currently, the proposal seems to be that Trump and this board, including Tony Blair, would have basically an open-ended role. There's no time limit. They could decide whenever they felt that the Palestinian Authority had reformed sufficiently. And that could, based on previous American demands, mean things like the Palestinians vowing that they would never take another case to the International Criminal Court, that they would give up all claims against Israel. Basically the sort of things that America might like to see, but which would make any Palestinian leadership look to their own people like they had sold out. You know, and that's been a recurring theme in this conflict, that the leaders that the West picks are not the leaders that can actually sell any peace to the public because they're so far apart. So yes, there's certainly a lot that needs to be treated with extreme skepticism, but emphasizing that, you know, the whole world, almost nearly the whole world, does want to see an end to these daily killings, to the famine. They want to see the hostages freed, and we need to find a way to get there.
Indeed it does. Well, let's hope it is a start, a better beginning rather than a road to nowhere. Jane Kinninmont from the United Nations, thank you for marking our card on this important development in the Middle East.